Right. Good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome to our Friday Learning Your Lunchtime interview webinar, which today is going to be with Tracey Ashington, a graduate recruiter with 20 years of experience, and who at one stage was, I think, the recipient of a fantastic award, but we'll get some details on that just now. And as you guys are all coming online, and I think we are expecting just a fantastic response. The universities certainly have been promoting this whole series. We're doing 3 of these webinar interviews with Tracey over the coming weeks, and it's really all going to be geared about getting you guys ready for the workplace, and that as students is something that you most definitely need to be thinking about way ahead of the time that you're actually going to be out there and looking for a job. So I'm going to ask Tracey to introduce herself shortly. And we're going to have a lot of fun just in a very informal discussion, as we always do. And most importantly, you guys are going to be able to ask your own questions, and specifically around the topic of CVs today. So in future sessions, we'll look more specifically at interviews, and then also more generally at a job search strategy. So today for CVs, as you guys are putting your CVs together, I mean, I teach an online course, and part of that, I have a couple of tools and I give a couple of principles and tips and tricks. And I certainly don't have all the answers. Tracey's been doing this for a lot longer than I have, and she's going to draw on her experience and give us an idea of, what should or shouldn't go into CVs and what she's seen work very well. But I do really encourage you all just to ask very specific questions about how to improve your CVs, and we'll pick up those questions as we go in the chat. And then, as always, if you can please let us know which universities you're from. Always just wonderful to see which universities are promoting these sessions, and then I can go and chase the other universities because I think the people that join these sessions and the type of professionals and experts like Tracey that you guys get access to. And I'm going to pick out a very nice bottle of wine for her to say thank you for this, but she's very kindly made her time available. And, we're so grateful for her to be able to do this and spend her time with us this afternoon. And just to think back to a couple of the other sessions we've had experts on academic writing and proofreading. We've had people who have done 2 PhDs. We've had a Rhodes Scholar, Buntu Fanteso, for example, who was off to London this year. So we interviewed him about getting that Rhodes Scholarship and the steps that he had to take to get there. We've had motivational speakers. We've had life coaches. Sometimes I just go live by myself and teach on a couple of topics and give away a few courses, so we have a little bit of fun with that. So great to see people coming from Pretoria, from Tux, from Pika, from University of Northwest. So we've got a great community here. And as you all should be aware, we have the Student Success Coach Facebook group. So, that's really where we sort of interact on a daily and a more regular basis. And I'll put all the links just now in the chat so that you guys can get access into that. And I sort of think of this as our weekly team meeting. We sort of have such a lot of fun in the Facebook group where there's no pressure, there's no supervisors, there's nobody there. It's a safe space. People regularly, what I call burn your boats. And I've been teaching a lot of time management and how to master your task and get things done. And I teach a principle of burn your boats, and people actually use the Facebook group to burn their boats, and they put on the group that they're going to get certain tasks done during the day, and then we hold them accountable to doing that. We've got one folk who says that they can't hear anything, but I think all good. I know Tracey and I can hear each other, so could just possibly be here we go. Wing. Yeah, look, I know there's lots of load shedding happening, and we're all very, very, very cold this morning. So hopefully you're warm and you've got a cup of tea and a hot cup of coffee. So Wing Power says just pop your headphones on, and that might be able to help you there. Okay, so enough from my side. Tracey, just introduce yourself. Tell us about this award that you won, but more importantly, just tell us you are so dedicated to helping students and professionals just find their way in the world. You've actually got a service that you offer, and I want you to talk about that. But just by way of introduction, who are you, and how can you help everybody today with this topic of how to write a fantastic job-winning CV? Tracey.
Okay, thank you for having me, Peter. I appreciate it. And thank you. It's so useful to see who is at which university. I'm keeping my my eyes open there. Tux is coming up quite a lot. So a bit of background about me, and Pete, you keep on going on about this award, and and I actually asked Pete to take it off the advert, for the webinar. But a little bit about me. It's my background wasn't always in, when I studied, I wasn't always studying to become be in human resources or recruitment. But I fell into it by chance. And this is a great story because I was looking for a job and I was filing in human resources. I was literally putting people's pay slips in their files. And before I knew it, somebody in the organization was an investment bank in London. They were sick and they asked me to stand in. And suddenly I was a graduate recruiter. And it was back in the days where we used to fax. And I was a graduate recruiter and landed up there at Lehman Brothers for 10 years. When I returned to South Africa, I continued when I got back to SA, the graduate sort of culture wasn't really happening yet. People they thought of graduates as a liability. But slowly it started. I worked for Rand Merchant Bank for 10 years, set up their grad program and ran it. Why I like to talk, I do a lot of talking to students, and why I like to do it is because I've been on the other side. So I've actually been in an organization recruiting. So I know what employers are looking for. And now I'm sort of on my own, have my own consultancy, and that's guiding people in terms of job searches, CVs, doing mock interviews, etc. But it's nice because I'm not within an organization. I can actually do it objectively. So yes.
Wonderful. And just to have both sides of that experience, I think is going to be so valuable for people today because, I guess what's most importantly on their minds, and we had Kathy Sims actually a few weeks ago just talking about the graduate recruitment space more broadly, and she obviously runs the South African Graduate Employers Association. So really this marketplace of skills where, we as students are on one side of it and then the employers are on the other side, and they are actively looking for skills. And it's so important for everyone to position themselves as best as possible. And we actually had Hannes Wessels, also previously an educational psychologist, helping us with tips and tricks around aligning your passion and your career aspirations with the demand and how to position yourself and how to think about, your career and the skills that you have and your brand and so on, and sort of take it forth and so on. So Tracey, let's just dive straight in then. So your 20 years of experience, as you've indicated there, been in the graduate recruitment space all that time, basically been on both sides, etc. Let's start. What is the number one biggest mistake and error that people make on CVs? So when you look at a CV, and you look at the patterns of when people have been successful in getting through to the next stage, etc. Because I know as an employer myself and as a manager hiring people over the years, a CV is one aspect of it, but it's certainly an important early stage filter that you apply. And what is that one biggest mistake that means that CV just goes to the bottom of the pile and jeopardizes that person's, chances, whereas they could have fixed that error and stood a much better chance later on? And obviously interviews and skills and all the rest of it will have to be tested. But as a first impression, what is that biggest error that you've seen come through on CVs?
Jokingly, I want to say a huge font, but that aside, okay. What I do want to begin with is when people give advice about CVs, I can say one thing, the person next to me could say something, I can even say something that you disagree with. So people get very baffled. They're like, okay, well, the recruiter told me to do this, now you're telling me to do this. What is right? And I think the rule of thumb is, if you turn yourself around and you say, I'm the employer and I'm looking for someone, would they notice my CV? So, and if the answer is yes, awesome. If it's not, why wouldn't it stand out? So I think what happens is the biggest mistake that people make tends to be trying to guess what they should put in and being a little bit cautious, not to sound boasty. But if you think about that CV, and we talked about brand, everything that is encompassed by finding a job, and the recruitment process and so on is a brand, and your CV has got to be part of that brand. And somebody looking at an employer receiving it and it not showcasing everything is just a pity, because that's really the only thing that they've got in front of them up front. It is you really on a piece of paper.
Okay, so it's got to be an extension of your brand. And I mean, sort of certainly in the course that I teach about improving your job prospects, I talk about a LinkedIn profile as a little bit of a database of everything about your professional experience and the network that you maintain, but your CV being an extract of that, or a summary, or the key points that position and showcase yourself at a point in time, that with the covering letter and the interview creates a whole package for you to get the best possible chance of getting a job. And you spoke about the big font, but then you also said try and capture everything. So it's always a balance. And I mean, a lot of people today on the call probably don't necessarily have decades of experience. I'm sure hopefully a couple of years or a few months, etc., at least. So they're not, I found sometimes later on in my career, it was more important the things that I left out from earlier on in my career versus the more recent experience of the last 2-3 years that I need to focus on, etc. So, I mean, as you say, it's going to vary from person to person, but it is that balance between looking too simplistic and a large overbearing sized font versus tiny little bullet points packing your entire LinkedIn profile onto one page, for example, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I have written down some ideas that I wanted to share, and absolutely, because I'm seeing some of the questions that are coming in are sort of touching on these points. So I'm going to give you a summary or a few key tips. Let's start at the top. So I like a very simplistic CV, and that's why I don't offer CV writing skills, because mine is so simplistic that people would probably be surprised if they'd have to pay for it. The other thing is, at the very top, your name, let's start with that. Have your name exactly as it is on your transcripts. Have it the same on your Zoom, the way you've named your Zoom. Have it the same as your ID. Keep some consistency, because in certain cases, someone will put their surname first, or they would then put a second name in, or they'd have a few names. So decide on how you're going to show your name and make it consistent. The other thing is, when you save your CV and your transcripts and any other supporting documents, it makes a big difference to recruiters if they get the email with your CV, Tracey Ashington resume or CV, and then transcripts, Tracey Ashington. It's just recruiters who are plowing through thousands of CVs. You want to make it as easy as possible. The next thing I'll go on to is having your personal details. What details does the employer need? And what is irrelevant? And what is dangerous to put on? So what I would say, on my template, for example, obviously, email, cell number. If you did nothing else, name and those two things. However, I do find it useful to put your city or your location. Don't put your full address. This is a document that's going out to a lot of people. People are on the hunt. A CV is perfect for somebody who wants to steal your identity. Then, so I put location. I don't recommend ID number. What I put at the bottom of a CV is a little sort of asterisk, and I say things like ID or references upon request. So it's not that you're being obstructive by not putting them. But I do think that it's important to put your date of birth. Now, you see, some people say, why should it count and why shouldn't it? But when you're young, and this is relevant for students, particularly at our age, it's not, it doesn't. But for you guys, when people are looking at you, they're looking at you for graduate programs and so on. So they need to see that there's a sync there. Once once you have got work experience, etc., it's going to be a different story. But if, for example, you're 28 going into grad program, they may say to you, you know what, the grad program is going to be sort of, I don't know, 21-year-olds or whatever. Let's look at sort of direct entry roles instead of a grad program. So those are just some of the initial the starter points. I'm sure there are going to be questions, and then I can give you some more info from there. Peter, you're going to keep an eye on the questions, and because I'm not keeping track.
Absolutely, Tracey. And what I wanted to do was just pick up on this one question here, and a couple of people have asked it, and certainly people have asked it in webinars that I've done on this topic previously, and I think it related to your identity and privacy aspects. So is it necessary to put a picture on a CV? So how many CVs have you seen with pictures, and does it work or doesn't it work? And then link to that, so just let's deal with the privacy aspect first, and then link to that, does it showcase your personality? Can it be adverse against you, etc.? Just pictures on a CV?
So for me, and you'll see I'm doing this a lot because this is interesting. For example, in Europe, in Germany, everyone has, photos. Like in South Africa, everyone has Microsoft Office templates. I personally wouldn't, and if I think about it, it's not even that it would be sort of ethically, like, why should it matter? I don't think a CV is there to showcase your personality. I think a CV is fact. You can showcase your personality in your cover letter. That's where you can be creative and tell them about you. But on a CV, people want to see, they don't want to be distracted by that kind of thing. And if they are, they really shouldn't. So for me, photo, definite no. Especially sometimes, I mean, you can see a photo and then you bring someone into the interview and they're so busy thinking they look nothing like this photo. Was it 10 years ago? But that's as an aside. So no, for me, no.
Okay, that's very good, Tracey. I think that's a clear and definite principle and guideline that you've given everybody. So appreciate that. Thank you so much. So I think just to build on that, Camilla, what's a good balance between appearing professional and showcasing your personality on a CV? So what I hear from Tracey is to balance more onto the professional side, and rely on your personality coming through in the interaction and the interview. And we've spoken a lot about cover letters in these webinars, and I do feel that's then an area where you can link your personality and your value proposition with what the company's looking for in the specific specific role. Tracey, just off the top of your head, does anything stand out over the many years that you've been doing this of a CV that just was on the wrong side of being too personal and maybe sort of friendly or over the top in terms of selling themselves from that perspective? A very inappropriate Facebook photograph that somebody had put on there, for example. Does there anything stand out in your memory that you want to tell us a fun story, just to keep people, I mean, this is important stuff and it's easy to get it wrong. Anything stand out?
You can see from my face, I just can't wait to tell. If you guys think for 20 years, I see like, I don't know, like 10, 20 CVs a day. When we were screening for the graduate program at R&B, I think we used to get like 3,600 applicants. And that's why I often refer back to that whole thing about keep it simple, help the recruiter to hire you. So the funniest thing is when, at the end, we say, you put some hobbies, put some interests. There was genuinely a young man who said going out to pick up girls on his CV.
Oh my gosh.
And he never lived it down. And then afterwards he was saying, it's because he wants to show his social, but by that stage it was done. The other thing is when, and again, this is very common in South Africa. So there will be things like health or there will be like a criminal record or family. People have listed dogs, pets by name. And that, I just feel like it's, again, that's so irrelevant because if your health wasn't good, what are you going to write? Health bad. So it's almost like I would rather not add it. I'm not a big fan of having driver's license on it because personally, I feel that if a company, unless of course it's related to driving, but if you're arriving on time and doing a great job, it doesn't necessarily mean, it doesn't really matter how you get there. So I don't want that to be a discriminator. And definitely no non-smoking. If you have a criminal record, they're going to pick it up on the checks at another stage, or you will take it offline, and explain it. So yeah, less is more in those. I mean, it's actually, we laugh now, right? Because those are the CVs I'm remembering of millions. I'll never forget.
Yeah, I can imagine. Tracey, then just a question here. And I mean, so I've put your website into the chat there. And guys, please do go and check out Tracey's website. And she offers a professional service. But do you have any suggestions? So you can certainly, contact Tracey and she can sort of quote you or, give you an indication of her rate to help you. But do you have any ideas for free services where people can just get a quick feedback on their CV for free, potentially, Tracey?
Absolutely. So there are a few different ways. I can share my template with you, Pete, too, but it's nothing. It's so simple. There is, I don't really like the Microsoft templates. I'm not saying don't use them, but they tend to be a bit sort of, I don't know, childlike with all the colors and so on. Again, my personal taste, and also I've worked only in finance and investment banking. So I am more used to or inclined towards that resume. When it's somebody who's in a creative space, then it's nice to show that sort of flair and create and make it a little bit more creative. But just to go back to that, so template, when you create, actually, I don't think CVs are going to be a thing for very much longer. I think our LinkedIn profiles are going to become our CVs. But on that point, if you go to LinkedIn, there is actually, it's like a button somewhere that I've seen where you can download your CV, so that your LinkedIn profile, and it actually comes up on as a CV, a PDF. So I know you can do that. The other thing is, there are, if you're going to use something online, which is really the only way you're going to kind of get it done for free. And there are tips, if you Google it, there's CV builders. I'd rather use that than the Microsoft templates, as I've said. And then the other thing is, I'm just trying to think. It's really, I think I would go with make sure your LinkedIn is great, and then use that PDF option to save.
Yeah, fantastic, Tracey. Thank you for that. And if I could just answer from my side, Retabile, what I've posted in the link there is a free seat, in my course called Improve Your Job Prospects. And in that course, I teach, basic CV writing and a tool called novoresume.com. So I just wanted to come at this question from a couple of different angles. It's a cloud-based CV layout tool that in fact Elon Musk uses, and it's, I would say, not the sort of colorful amateurish templates that you do get in Microsoft Word, which I totally agree with Tracey, just look like Microsoft Word. This is actually a professional level template option for you to use for CVs, and they have different formats, whether you're in a NGO environment or whether you're in a professional investment banking environment, and you can quickly click a couple of buttons and it lays it out for you. And then, I mean, Tracey, I don't know if you're aware of this, but one of the fantastic things that I found when I built my CV on Nova Resume was that it actually has tool tips. So it uses algorithms and artificial intelligence to have a look at the length of your bullet points and to advise you to make it a bit shorter, or to tell you whether you put too much information in a certain role, because it can check the date and it can say that's too far ago and you've got too many bullet points in that. They'll be more interested in the roles that are in the last 2 to 3 years, for example. So I've put that link in the chat, and in the course there is a lesson where I take you through that Nova Resume tool. So to answer Retabilia's question, that course I'm making available to everybody for free today. If you click that link, you can enroll within the next 3 days, but it won't review your CV. It will make suggestions for you based on the information that you put in. It's the closest thing that I can think of, Retabili, that answers your question. And there is a free version of Nova Resume. So you can go on, create an account, start loading up your CV in there, and go through those tips and tricks and suggestions from Nova Resume, as well as the guidance that I provide you in the course, which I've made available for you there for free as well. So Retabile, that's perhaps not an individual personalized review of your CV. It's more of an automated cloud-based feature, but certainly something that you can do. Take half an hour, put your CV on there, and it'll, I think, give you some value. And if nothing else, just look at my own version that I show you in the course, and that might give you some pointers. And then I think, let's just segue then into the LinkedIn discussion, Tracey, because I also teach in that same course how to use LinkedIn and how I've managed it for my own profile, and the link between your LinkedIn details and your CV. And I certainly agree with you, Tracey. I think, there will be a button that just says click here or select these items to put on your CV, for example. And LinkedIn certainly is a critical tool for you to keep, I think, relevant information from which you can build your CV throughout your whole career, Tracey. I mean, it's important for the networking.
Passport.
It's like your database. Yeah, that you can draw on.
I think with LinkedIn, there are a few tips. So this is also kind of where you can show your brand, your personality, market yourself, show your interest, because a lot of people only put a profile picture, but there's also that space at the top where you could have a quote. Please, not Warren Buffett, or you could show something. We're not talking about your holiday, but we're talking about something linked to your career and interest and area of expertise, something relevant. So that kind of gives a nice feel for your personality. Then the other thing that's really important with LinkedIn is when you put your name, you should, just under your name, you should say, for example, software developer, let's say BSc programming. So actually have a title that's going to catch the attention. You won't believe a lot of people don't put that, or they may just say looking for an opportunity or something like that. Think about what your elevator pitch is. What are you? Put your name and put it straight under. The other thing is, algorithms pick up stuff, and also, recruiters pick up stuff. So when they are doing a search on LinkedIn, and a lot of companies are using LinkedIn now rather than recruitment agencies because it's cheaper. So if a recruiter is looking, there's certain words that they're going to put in. So it's important when you list each job, it's very important that you add underneath some bullets or some comments about what it entails. Don't just say the dates, the company name, and the role. Put some points in that are going to be skills that will help your CV to come up. The other thing is with LinkedIn, and I don't want to go divert too much in terms of LinkedIn, but two other key things for me. Make sure you have more than 500 people, because then it doesn't show 118 and it looks like you're lame. You want to look like you're actively working it. And then the other thing is don't only have contacts who are recruiters. Go out and say, I want to be a head of marketing in a retail environment. Go and find the key retailers. Go and find leaders in that space. Go and add them. You see, they're going to, or follow them. If you feel a bit shy, follow them. You're going to see what they're posting. You're going to pick up on what's happening in the market. You're going to be connected. Then, of course, if you really want to work for ShopRite, add their recruiters so that if they get your CV, they can look. So be strategic, not just click, 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 and I see someone like my Warren Buffett. It could be worse, right? It could be Rich Dad, Poor Dad. In any case, yeah, so use LinkedIn strategically. I'm telling you, it makes such a difference. There was a time when I wanted a certain job, and I think I added everyone. I must have looked like a stalker. I added everyone in the whole company. I still didn't get the job, but
No, Tracey, I think that's very good. And so just a couple of points that you made there, very important. And I've put my LinkedIn profile there in the chat. So you're more than welcome to connect with me. And, if I see good content that you're posting, I'm very happy to share it and boost your profile to I think I've got 13,000 or something like that now. So I do agree with Tracey, boost it above the 500 and then it looks like you're a serious networker. So there's a link there. Nyasha made a point there just on the screen about, the bullet points, for those job descriptions. So my take would be, just in addition to the brilliant insight that Tracey's given there, is, focus on the value that you created for that previous employer. I mean, I think it's fantastic that you've got the skills and definitely show those, but you want to demonstrate that those skills led to real value creation, in that environment. So take Tracey, for an example, recruiting into an investment banking environment. It'd be good if you've got data and analytics skills, but if you use those data and analytics skills to build a model for Lehman Brothers that helped achieve a 2% profit increase for their trade finance division, that's a crunchy bullet point that will stand out on a CV. Now, it does niche you into that specific role a little bit more, but like Tracey said, nail your colors to the mask. Don't leave it open-ended that you're looking for opportunities, because then everyone's going to pass you by. Niche yourself down to the core roles, the core skills, the core value that you delivered, but then focus on getting those and your CV and your covering letter in front of people that are looking specifically for that. So that matching between your core skills, the values delivered, and the requirements for those skills and that value, that's work that you have to do. And as Tracey has mentioned, and I mean, Tracey, we could probably do another full webinar on LinkedIn, and maybe that's
I
one
was
that we could
just
add in
thinking
at some
that,
point.
yeah.
And we can go into the whole, because I mean, there are recruiters on LinkedIn now searching for skills that everyone on this webinar today has. And you just have to, and in the course, so by the way, in the course, there's a lesson on LinkedIn, and I teach you how to switch on the alerts so that you pop up for recruiters, and I teach you how to use keywords and how to make yourself a little bit more marketable on LinkedIn. But Tracey, I'm going to take an action, and if you'll be kind enough, we can schedule one more dedicated on LinkedIn. Let's stick to then just the CV sort of
Yes.
type of discussion. And Manan Gesi says, do I always have to change my CV based on the job description advertised? So Tracey, your thoughts on angling your CV and emphasizing or reducing aspects based on the role you're going for?
I wouldn't do that. I think your CV is your CV, and I would use the cover letter to relate it back. I like the way you said, Pete, when you say you've worked on something and if you've worked on a campaign and it's been awarded something, put that on, because it is nice to show what you're saying you can do was part of something that was hugely successful. But if I'm just thinking, it's a good one. I would say no. Okay, so it took a little bit of time, so you can see it's not clear cut. What I would do is I would put your CV as it is, and then look, unless you're wanting to change completely. So say, for example, you have studied engineering and you want to work in a bank, and you obviously you can't suddenly switch it to make out like you've done anything different. But what you would do is say you've studied, but then show your intent by perhaps having signed up for 1 or 2 Udemy classes in finance, perhaps having creating a trading portfolio where you put that on your CV, or perhaps in the cover letter saying, I studied engineering, but I'm really keen to work in a bank. So you would, to do it any other way, I think you'd be kind of fibbing.
Tracey, I tend to agree with you, and I think the customization of your skills and your value proposition is better in a cover letter because, when I teach cover letters, I always say talk about the company, and you can do some research and go and look up their latest press releases, and then link yourself to the problems that they're trying to solve and the roles that they're currently hiring for. If you have to do a unique version of your CV for every single role that you apply for, it's going to keep you very busy, and you're going to struggle to keep track of it. So, yeah, you're going to lose track of it. So I wholeheartedly agree with you there, Trace. And we spoke actually a couple of weeks ago on this webinar. I had to write 70 cover letters to get out of my ESCOM bursary that they, wanted me to pay back because I didn't go and work for them after finishing varsity. So in 1998, that was 150,000 Rand. And I wrote 70 different cover letters, but it was one CV for all of those different 70 cover letters. And I just needed one person to say, okay, you've stood out for us. We'll buy you out. And they did. And that's fantastic. I told that whole story. I think it was last week or the week before. Okay, so fantastic. Simeon's got a great question there. And I'm also just reading these questions out because we record this for the podcast as well. So if you are only listening to this, the question is the following. If you have not yet got a lot of working experience, a lot of students on the webinars today, to what extent can you fill your CV with school and university achievements, e.g. provincial sport, academic achievements, etc.? Tracey?
Absolutely. So when you're a student, they're not going to expect you to have loads of work experience. So don't worry about that. When you're coming in as a student at a grad level, first job, even if it's not as a graduate, they know they're hiring you for your degree. Now, what I would say is if you've done things that may not even be kind of relevant work experience, I would tend to add them so long as it's not going to be, to be honest, as a student, even if you worked at a bar or a restaurant or whatever, that's showing, it looks quite good to say, worked as a waitron to help fund studies or something like that. That's quite entrepreneurial. So I would put that. If you have those, if you have those kind of examples, obviously as you start to get work experience, that kind of thing would fall away. Then it becomes, null and void. But right now you can put those sort of ventures. The other thing is if you've had internships, definitely internships. I could talk for a full hour on internships and the importance of it, whether it's a formal internship, whether it's job shadowing, whether it's whatever it is, you can put. If you don't have any of those, absolutely, you must put achievements and all of that anyway. And things like sport, whether you've done it, you've been in a first team or just done it for fun. I think that adds a great dynamic to your CV to kind of understand that. If you're a provincial sports person, hell yeah, that should probably be right up at the top. But everybody, in summary, no one's going to penalize people who are students who don't have any work experience. If you're first or second year, guys, go and find a VAC job or a job shadow, even if it's for an hour, so you can put it on your CV. It makes a difference.
Yeah, there was a question, Tracey, I'm looking for it, but the question was effectively saying, if we're studying, here we go at the moment. But CB asks, when my CV template requires me to put my job title, but obviously we don't have work experience coming straight out of varsity, so linked to the discussion we were just having now, can I use the course I'm studying as simply my title? So I think, thoughts?
So in this case, CV, I would say the two key elements of a CV are going to be education and work experience. Now, when you're a student, put your education first, obviously. Any other work, internships, whatever, is going to be in conjunction with or maybe fitting in with. So that's less important. Once you have work experience, then you're going to shift it the other way around. When a CV says put in your current title, it's unusual they would, but then definitely say full-time student and with the tertiary institution, etc. That'd be completely. So you think about it, you are a student, so yeah, that could be a way of doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly agree with what you were saying just now around, if you've had part-time jobs, I mean, I used to do paper rounds. I was a teller at Checkers,
Me
I mean,
too.
yeah, and I mean, it shows that you work with money. It shows that you're entrepreneurial. And these big corporates, Tracey, I mean, people will be surprised. Certainly in First Rand, where both of you and I have work experience, we value an entrepreneurial culture. So we want to hire people that are entrepreneurial in nature and will go out. And a lot of people are supporting families and needing to bring money into the house, etc., in general, and for friends and family and so on. And those are skills that are maybe kind of sort of peripheral to the core role that's been hired for, but are certainly going to help you stand out. If there are two CVs that are exactly the same, the differentiator is going to be somebody that managed to hold down a couple of extra part-time jobs and help put their sister through varsity, etc. That might not go up at the top of the CV, but it's at least a talking point for an interview. It's at least something where they put two CVs together and they say, I mean, First Rand, we're going to go for the entrepreneur, surely.
Absolutely. So I agree. When I was coaching someone, it was this last week, they were doing something at, and I'm trying to think of the exact situation, but in fact, I was coaching him last night. He had this concept about sort of an online platform thingy for students that he was working on. And I said, and he said, but I didn't put it, it's just me and my friend. I said, okay, come on, we're going to put it. What are you going to call the company? Right now, we created this amazing name. I said, go register it, create a website, and we put it on. Even though it was just a concept that they had just started rolling out, you can say that, you can tell them that. It looks awesome to even, when you're a student and there's people who even sell their textbooks, etc., you're not going to say textbook, but show that there's a kind of business flair there. It's not random to put small initiatives that you do.
Tracey, another great question here from Kanayo, and just again reading this for people also listening on the podcast today. How do we create a good summary statement at the beginning of a CV, or should we even put one? Thoughts about just that high-level executive summary of what you as a person offer that employer?
So this is it's interesting because there's a recruitment agency called Crayon that I sometimes consult with, and the CEO there is a fan of having a summary at the top. He says to sort of highlight, or for example, and again, I'm referring to someone that I was working with last night. For example, things at the top, he says if there are specific skills, you should do a personal summary, but don't be generic. So don't say things like, I'm a good team worker, I'm diligent, all that, everyone says that they're that. I think at the top, if you're doing a professional summary, talk about the stuff that you have made an impact in. So like you were saying earlier, Pete, where you can say, it's quite a good thing for me to think about because it tends to not be something I do. So that's why I'm kind of weighing it up. I normally just say have a line and use that in your CV. But Derek said it's really good to have a snapshot of your skills, so long as it's not generic stuff. So say I am award-winning advertising agency, data specialist. I'm making up all sorts of words, with a background in science and a desire to become a leading teller at Checkers. Okay, so then it's nice and simple. Not a story about your life. That can go in the cover letter. From a personal perspective, I actually on my CV template have a one-liner where I say something unique about you. I actually put it there, and then and I say, okay, describe yourself to me. Okay, what is it? Come on, let's push. I don't want. So we actually did one the other day where it was financier by background, author by passion, capitalist at heart, or so. We made something funky at the top. There's one that always stood in my mind. Somebody in his one-liner said, if I was a share, I'd be Facebook pre-IPO. Now that's very banky, obviously, but I'm still talking about it like 6 years later. That's the kind of catchiness that you want.
Yeah, Tracey, I love that. I mean, such good insights there. And just a reminder, guys, the link is in the chat for the course that we've made available to you for free. We had a couple of questions about how we can get a review of our CV. So we talked a little bit about what's available there. Then a question here, to become a volunteer in order to build their CV in cases where there are no internship opportunities. So as Tracey was saying, if you missed that point, internships are so important. Tracey, I'm doing some work with the Wits Business School with their postgraduate diploma students. Obviously, in their year, they have to secure an internship for a few months and just helping them on that path to success. And even if you can't get a paid internship, I mean, I heard of somebody the other day who said, I want the experience. I want to I'll do it for free because it means I can put it on my CV. So your thoughts there, very important.
Very important. So I've actually had people say, in fact, I will die if she's listening, but she said, I will chain myself to your desk and get you coffee all day. And it's that kind of, it's like when you follow up with recruiters. You're not lame. You're actually showing the hunger. And I have said, in order to, if it takes saying you'll work for free because it's that important, I say to get a certain name on your CV. So, there's a name that's of a company that's so great that it's going to be worth millions to you in your career going forward, hopefully. But it's going to impact your CV and it's going to impact the jobs you get. If it means working for a month for free, do what you can.
Yeah. But Tracey, I mean, you don't even have to say that you work for free, right? I mean, when somebody's scanning down your CV and they see that you spent a month at Lehman Brothers, yes, it's your personal decision as to whether you can live without that income for a month, but the investment that you make now and the tough times that you perhaps have to endure and cut back on a few other things in your life to be able to at least get that one liner there with that name. And there was a question earlier about how applicable some of the principles are that we're talking about today in terms of other areas beyond finance and investment, because I mean, both of us sort of in that field. And I would say that broadly speaking, in the commercial industrial space, I think a lot of what we're talking about is very applicable. And this topic of just getting yourself out there and being hungry to the degree that you can put up with some sort of short-term loss for longer-term gain, I certainly support that. I mean, just try as much as you can, do as much as you can, get yourself out there, demonstrate that hunger. I certainly, I mean, the hiring decisions that I've made over the years, because that hunger will translate into the person actually completing the role and doing the job internally. And Tracey, I think what a lot of people don't realize is to get stuff done, certainly in a large corporate like First Rand, you have to be hungry. You have to be sacrificial. You have to do whatever it takes to get the job done. You don't walk into a job and then your work arrives in the morning and you sit there doing the job that you studied at university. You're out there dealing with politics, dealing with difficult personalities, overcoming obstacles every day. So we want to see, we want to see that coming through into the organization. And I'll often, retrofit what I see on the CV to the person actually doing the job. And I will certainly favor somebody who's gone out and taken a few chances and been a little bit of an entrepreneurial risk taker, etc., sacrificed a little bit, lost a bit of sleep over the years. I mean, that's Elon Musk's big thing. Certainly, that's
You
my
quote
perspective. That
Elon Musk a lot.
yeah, look, I mean, when we talk about him a lot, because he also says I don't want varsity graduates, and I say, well, okay, that doesn't mean varsity degrees are not valuable. It absolutely is, but you've got to think about what you do over and above that, and that's the lesson that I think we must all take away, from that sort of discussion. Tracey,
Um,
any your guidelines on CVs? Other thoughts?
so what I was thinking is, whether it's volunteering, whether it's whether it's volunteering or whether it's conversations that you're having with certain people in organizations, whatever you do to make yourself stand out. So if you're thinking of your CV, as we said earlier, amongst a bunch, think about what would stand out to you if you were the employer. Whether it be arriving there with your CV in hand, which I'm not recommending, but even if it's, the other thing you can do is update your CV a little bit every so often so that you can send it to the recruiters again and stay front of mind. You can say, oh, please find attached my updated CV. Things like that. So you see, it's very sneaky and very, but it's strategic.
Yeah. Tracey, I just didn't want to lose the opportunity to quickly show everybody my own CV on Nova Resume, which I teach you in the course, and I take you through a little bit more detail here. And just to touch on some of the thoughts that so I have my picture up at the top there. And that's a personal decision that everybody must make. And I certainly, agree with your guidance, that you gave earlier on. My details in the top right. Now, this Nova Resume tool gives you this whole layout. I didn't have to sit and worry about this layout. I put the information in and then it lays it out for me. And I've got that sort of 2-sentence high level value proposition at the top there, work experience, professional skills. And then a lot of these tips, over here, you can switch the template. Do you want a professional one or do you want a different type of one, for example? So there's these wonderful sort of features that you get with this whole layout, which I found sort of incredibly useful. It'll take you through the header, the title, the summary, all the practical aspects, your work experience. You enter it in, and then it puts it in on your document. So I just wanted to quickly show everybody, how Nova Resume works as a tool that people could consider using, to lay their CV out. And mine's 2 pages.
I would love to critique yours. And this is such a good point, because you see that, to my very first point, everyone's got a different view. So I look at this and it's very different to what I would do. But this is what Elon Musk recommends. So I could be off track here. But in this, let's talk about the photo, for example. It actually really works there because it's showing your brand. The professional skills thing, that's a lot of space for those comments. This is, for those points. The other thing is, it's quite wordy. So somebody asked earlier about bullet points. Try not to have sentences like, my responsibility was to take care of this, and do financial analysis. Just put bullet financial analyses. So, I mean, not just a word, but less of a story. That said, it does look great. So, in fact, I've written it down. I may go and redo my own CV. I don't even think I have a CV.
Tracey, no, I mean, this has been such fun, and I think it's great that you quickly gave a quick review of my CV. So there's also good tips and tricks there that you helped us with. So really do appreciate that. Okay, so I think we're going to start wrapping up here. And Tracey, thank you for making yourself available on that side. And I know that you've had some challenges with load shedding and getting access into the session this morning. So I really do want to thank you very much for that. And also just to mention to everybody, what I also do is to answer all these questions in additional videos, which we do put onto the YouTube channel. So I'm going to do that and provide those to you. And I'd really appreciate if you guys can just subscribe and switch on your notifications so that you get those regular coaching tips on the YouTube channel, as well as the recording of this session that we've been through today. You'll be able to get access into on the YouTube channel, and it'll always be available for you to go back to it. I think we've certainly got good support for a LinkedIn webinar, Tracey. So if you're comfortable, I'll book that in, and that means that I'll be looking for 2 good bottles of wine to say thank you for this wonderful insights that you're getting. A reminder, guys, Tracey Ashington .com, TraceyAshington.com. I have put the link in there. So please, this is Tracey's job. I mean, she's on her own. She's gone out and she helps people. She also does the most incredible charity work. Tracey, quickly tell us about Suits for Students. This is heartwarming what you do. So so please just let's end off. And I really want you to see the Tracey that I know, and that has a heart for helping students. So Tracey, just your incredible work that you do to help students get suits for interviews. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. I was going to say, Pete, you and I have always connected on that. I absolutely love working with young people. And that's, students and graduates and getting them started. And when I was out on campus interviewing people and so on, I was finding so many young people arriving. And it wouldn't have to be a suit per se, but just sort of office attire. And they were arriving in something sort of crumpled, or they were feeling awkward because they didn't have. One young man said, "Oh, I couldn't wear my suit because today's my brother's day," or other people were renting. And I said, "No, this can't happen. There's so many professionals who are already working, who have clothes that they no longer need." And I said, and people want to donate, they just don't know where to send them. And so I started collecting from corporates work attire, male and female, and skirts, ties, shoes. And then what I would do is, when the students would come to the office to interview, I'd bring them into the room, we'd get them all kitted out, nice ties and things. So that is very, very close to my heart.
Well, keep doing what you're doing, Tracey. I think that it's incredible, and it's helped countless people. And hopefully today, what you've shared with everybody is going to be also useful. Go onto Tracey's website, connect with her, book some time, pay for her services. You will get a return on that investment of tenfold with a successful career in the future. Hop onto the course that I provided you there for free. I've seen a couple of the questions in the chat, for example, about setting up your CV in the early stages, getting onto LinkedIn. The course is geared towards early stage career professionals, students that are needing to get into the workplace and position themselves to improve their job prospects. So that is the course that you can go into and enroll in today. And I will see you there in the course, in those lessons. And you can interact with me in the course there. So Tracey, thank you very much. Appreciate your time today, and chat soon. We'll see you in 2 weeks for the next session.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Tracey. Goodbye to everybody.
Bye.
Cheers, guys.